This 2024 NBA Finals betting preview edition of the NBA Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. You can win up to 100 times your entry with Underdog Fantasy Pick'em. Sign up with promo code NBA SGPN to claim your special pick and first-time deposit offer up to $250 in bonus cash. That's UnderdogFantasy.com. Make sure you guys use that promo code NBA SGPN. And we're also brought to you by the newest sponsor on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. That's Rhythm. Get the best data-driven props and picks from Rhythm. Claim your 7-day free trial today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM. Welcome, everyone, to the NBA Gambling Podcast, part of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. It is Monday, June the 3rd, here to get into the NBA Finals, tipping off on Thursday between the Western Conference champions, the Dallas Mavericks, and the Eastern Conference champs, the Boston Celtics. Got the full house here with us today to break down the series. We'll have content all throughout the week for the NBA Finals leading up to Thursday. So now is the best time to be subscribed if you aren't already to the NBA Gambling Podcast. But joining me here to help me break everything down for the NBA Finals, you guys know me as the voice of the Tennis Gambling Podcast, WNBA, MLB, of course, here on the NBA Gambling Podcast, Scott Studio Reichel. Scott, what's going on, my man? How you doing this Monday morning?
Yeah, doing pretty well. We got basketball to talk about, something that we have not done for the last couple of days. So good to be back. I know the series doesn't officially start until Thursday. Either way, though, point is, should be fun. Very interesting finals matchup. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to breaking it down here with you, gentlemen. But also joining us here on the NBA Gambling Podcast, my co-host on Mondays. Of course, it's the villain himself, the superstar of the show, Terrell Furman Jr. Terrell, what's going on, my man? How you doing?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm good. Hey, Scott, we haven't had men's basketball to talk about, but if they came and rocked with us on the women's side, we've had a ball.
Oh, no, but I lost my lock and dog yesterday, so I'm not talking about it. I'm just pretending that episode didn't happen. So,
I mean, I'm sporting the 11-1 locks right now, so I'm sitting pretty.
There you go. Again, if you guys haven't already tuned in to the WNBA Gambling Podcast, you guys are missing out on Terrell and Scott actually crushing it to start the season for the women's side of things. So again, make sure you guys tap in with them for the WNBA Gambling Podcast. Gentlemen, we are now down to the final two teams here for the NBA Finals. Like I mentioned, Dallas making the return to the NBA Finals since the 2011 season. Well, they did win it when Mr. Dirk Nowitzki was there for the Mavericks, and then Boston just recently was there in 2022 when they fell short. How do they lose to that series? I can't even remember.
Warriors.
Yeah, the Warriors. There you go. To the Golden State Warriors.
So here they are. They had like a 96% chance of winning or whatever, according to ESPN, right?
97.3.
97.3? All right.
Yeah, nobody's keeping track of it here, though. But yeah, hey, we'll get into it. We'll give our predictions. We'll talk about the X's and O's, what the keys will be for the series between these two teams to win it. And let's just get into it here, gentlemen. Obviously, Boston, a lot of conversation has been about their path getting to the NBA Finals. But I think, again, you play who's in front of you. And then this could also be a different conversation about another team if they have the same path. And I know Celtics were, quote unquote, fortunate with the injuries that the opposing teams had that they faced, with Jimmy Butler being out, Donovan Mitchell missing the final two games, Jared Allen being gone for the entire series. And then we saw Tyrese Halliburton miss the final couple games there as well for the Boston Celtics. But, you know, give them credit. They went out and took care of business, and they are headed back to the NBA Finals here. Right now, as it stands, gentlemen, the Boston Celtics are a -210 favorite to win the NBA Finals this year. Dallas Mavericks sitting at +175. Scott, let me start with you here. Who do you like to win the NBA Finals and why?
It's very, very tricky because Boston's made it here. They have not really been challenged that much, and I feel like nobody's impressed because they had one of the, let's say, weaker overall paths to the NBA Finals, arguably ever, just with the amount of injuries they dealt with. Now, I know on the other hand, they were the 1 seed. Their path was supposed to be easy, but nobody expected this because everybody died. I'll just go there. So Jimmy Butler gets injured. I know that Miami, I think we'd all agree, wasn't as good as people were pretending they were, but Bower didn't play. Rozier didn't play. They were missing two of probably their best 4 or 5 guys on the roster, and they didn't play. Then they lost that one home game in game 2. It was embarrassing, but they won every other game comfortably. Then the next round, they face off against Cleveland, and Jared Allen doesn't play. Mitchell gets injured in the series, and you're going down the line, and more bodies keep just falling for Cleveland. And they win that series as well. Had another embarrassing home game there. They lost by a bunch, but they won all the other games. Not in, I'd say, as convincing fashion as the Miami series, but they were able to win that in a relatively convincing fashion. Then the last round, they probably should have lost 3 games, and they swept because Indiana was incompetent down the stretch of some games. They definitely should have lost game 1. They should have probably lost game 3 or game 4 or both. So the point is you're looking at a really weird Celtics run because on one hand, they've made it to the NBA Finals, but on the other hand, you really aren't impressed by any of their overall series wins because they were against weak teams that got weaker because of how injured they were. As for Dallas, they did the opposite. Dallas ended up beating a couple of really solid Western Conference teams. Yes, you could argue that they were fortunate that Denver ended up losing. You could argue that, maybe not, but the point is they were able to beat up on Minnesota in 5. They beat OKC. OKC, in hindsight, I feel like that's actually a series that aged pretty well for both the Thunder and for the Mavericks because the Thunder actually gave the Mavericks a run, and the Mavericks were able to fight off a pretty dangerous spot there in Game 6, and they were down like 18 points, came back and won that game. And the first round, they also had a tough run against the Clippers. They lost game 1 by what felt like 40 points. Then they ended up coming back and winning that series as well. So Dallas has been more impressive based on the overall path of both teams. The problem is that Boston, I still think, is the better team on paper, but they really have not looked great in a lot of these series against weaker competition. And we do know, no matter what people think about Tatum and the fact that he's going to be a first-team All-NBA guy, I don't think he should be. I think it should be Brunson instead, but they're going to give it to Tatum. I think we all know Luke is the better player, and I don't think it's that close. So the argument is Dallas does have the best player on the court by what I think is a decent margin, and they're getting plus money. That's what makes it interesting. Not to mention that Boston has home court, but they're awful on their home floor in the playoffs for the last couple of years. I think for this one, I would play it relatively safe. I think I'd rather just take Dallas. I was initially on Boston. At least I was tempted by it. But the more that I think about the series, I'm going to play it safe. Give me Dallas plus 1.5 games. I think if Boston ends up winning the series, it's going to be a war, potentially going to 7. But I do think Dallas can find ways to steal victories in games they should probably lose. Because we all know late in games, you'd rather have Luka and Kyrie than Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown, not so much because he had the big 3-pointer in that Indiana series. But it just feels like even when Boston is in these nail-biter games, I still don't like Tatum's shot selection at all. And it's been a serious problem for years. And you know Luka, what he showed in that Minnesota series on multiple occasions with Kyrie, that if it's a close game, they're going to find ways to manufacture better offense than you. That's probably how it's going to go. So if I had to go for a series bet right now, I'd go with Dallas plus 1.5 games. If I had to go for the series, it's really, really close. For value alone, I got to take Dallas. If Boston wins the series, would I be shocked? No. But I think that if you're talking about what I think is a pretty close series, I'd give Boston like a 53% chance to win the series, give or take. I got to take the big plus money because I feel like the odds are off. So give me Dallas for the value.
Yeah, I think that all the value obviously is on the Dallas Mavericks here at that plus 175 price. And also just comes down to, I think all of us would agree with that. Do we trust the Boston Celtics when it comes down to clutch moments for them to close out games? And more times than not that they haven't been able to under the Joe Mazzulla era with the Boston Celtics, where we know for the Dallas Mavericks, and we saw this throughout the playoffs, especially in the Western Conference Finals, that Kyrie and Luka were able to be those guys and be those closers for this Dallas Mavericks team. And I think you're 100% correct when you talk about it, just looking at it on paper, that the Boston Celtics are the more talented team, especially with the depth that they do have outside of Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. And I should have mentioned this, that it seems like Porzingis is all systems go for game 1. From what I did see, he was participating in 5-on-5 scrimmage and practice and things like that. So wait for the official news, but expect him to be back, if not game 1, I think game 2 at the latest. But outside of those two guys, right, you brought in Jrue Holiday as one of the better two-way players in the NBA. Derek White, who's been phenomenal for this Boston Celtics team. And if you get Porzingis back, obviously that's only a plus for this team. The concern I have about the Dallas Mavericks is that outside of Kyrie and Luka, they're going to need somebody else to step up. And I think for the Boston Celtics, when you look at it, that hey, if Jason Tatum has an off game, if Jaylen Brown has an off game, you have guys like Derek White who can consistently knock down 3-point shot for you. Drew Holiday always puts himself in the right spots, and we saw that all throughout the playoff series, whether it was against the Indiana Pacers or the Cleveland Cavaliers, that he finds those spots right under the basket multiple times and gets those easy looks. He's also a great defender. We saw him make those key stops down the stretch. So I'm not saying that he's going to be able to slow down Luka if he is matched up on him, because Luka is just that absolutely phenomenal player. I mean, we're getting to that conversation. Is he the best player in the NBA? But I think that, again, for me, the tipping scale has kind of been the depth that the Boston Celtics do have. But do I trust them? I'm not sure. So I am going to go with the Boston Celtics here to win the NBA Finals. I agree with you. I think it's going to be absolute war at minimum. I do think that this does get to 6, possibly 7 games in this series here. So I'll go with Boston here. Terrell, we know where you're going with this series, I think. But give us your take and then play devil's advocate on what it would take for Dallas to lose the NBA Finals here and Boston to win.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty simple. Dallas loses the NBA Finals if Kyrie Irving and Luka aren't ready, aren't 100%, and aren't locked in. And if an injury happens, like what has happened on this entire run of the Boston Celtics, then yeah, Dallas is going to probably lose in that situation. But if Dallas goes into this healthy, the difference in that one matchup after they traded for PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford and this team now is that they're a lot longer. They are able to defend a lot better because of that length and rebound a lot better. And so now that Daniel Gafford is inserted into the starting lineup, now that you have Derrick Jones Jr. inserted to the starting lineup, that just makes them a really, really big team that can match up pretty well with Boston. And then you go and you look, and Derek Lively coming off the bench. And we talk about how centers struggle against the Boston Celtics. And we look at Miles Turner in the series he had. We look at Evan Mobley and Bam Adebayo in the series they had. If Daniel Gafford and Derek Lively are able to give you that extra oomph, that extra lively 10 for 10 off the bench, then that's a lot to overcome, especially if Kyrie and Luka are hitting their shots. And so, yeah, I think that it's
correct you quickly. I think you said struggle against center, struggle against the Celtics. I think you meant thrive against the Celtics.
Thrive. Well, they struggle against centers.
Well, yeah, I think you said the opposite.
Yeah.
So yeah, Boston struggles against centers. That's what you meant.
Yeah.
Either way, I think that it's enough. And I think that PJ Washington's probably going to be the X factor for me. If PJ Washington's able to go out there and give you really, really good percentage and help an additional 10, 15 points a game, and you have that from somebody else, and he can hit those corner threes and those shots that are wide open that Boston is going to give them, then yeah, absolutely. I think that the Dallas Mavericks can get it done. And I think they do. At this point, I'm guaranteed one loss at home by the Boston Celtics. So I'm going to go ahead and take it. And I think Dallas is going to be able to get it done.
Yeah, you mentioned PJ Washington. He was absolutely phenomenal in that conference semifinals against the Thunder, where he was shooting just lights out from beyond the arc. And I think, again, that's something that the Dallas Mavericks are definitely going to need next to Kyrie and Luka, guys to knock down those 3-point shots. I think one player that hasn't really been talked about a lot for the Dallas Mavericks, who's been absolutely phenomenal, has been Derrick Jones Jr., because he did a pretty good job on Anthony Edwards in the Western Conference Finals. He was able to rebound the basketball. He was able to knock down 3-point shots as well. So, as constructed as this team is, and we talked a lot about the additions that the Dallas Mavericks made at the trade deadline, like you mentioned, Terrell, with PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford, that's been absolutely phenomenal for this Dallas Mavericks team. And you already talked about the guys here. That I think that Derek Lively, as the playoffs have progressed, he's just grown into his role very, very well, and he's had pivotal, defensive plays, and also been able to knock down free throws as well for this Dallas Mavericks team. So when you talk about the X's and O's matchup, I think it's really, really intriguing for both of these teams. I think it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. All right, before we get into some serious props here, I'll see we continue the conversation here for the NBA Finals. Let me tell everyone about our friends over at Underdog Fantasy. Hey, we're on to the NBA Finals. And Underdog Fantasy, our sponsor, wants to make a lot more interesting. Underdog Fantasy, number one, is the easiest place to play fantasy sports. Playing their pick'em game is as simple as selecting higher or lower on player stats like points, rebounds, assists, and so much more. Make entries involve basketball or mix and match across your other favorite sports, and you can win up to 100 times your money, and it's a ton of fun. Underdog is available in 30 plus states, including California, Texas, and even Canada. Underdog will be running a ton of different promos, bonus cash airdrops, specials, giveaways, and more throughout the NBA playoffs. So make sure to follow at Underdog Picks on Twitter to keep an eye out. And as I mentioned, Underdog is available in 30 plus states, including California, Texas, and Canada. They also just launched Champions, their player versus player format in Florida. So sign up with promo code NBA SGPN to claim your special pick and first time deposit offer up to $250 in bonus cash. Again, that's Underdog Fantasy. Make sure you guys use that promo code NBA SGPN. All right, guys, before we do get into some serious props for the NBA Finals, anything else we want to mention from a matchup standpoint or anything else from a coaching edge or anything like that here, Scott, you want to discuss?
No, you mentioned as a player that stepped up in the last series and a player that I'll probably back for player props in this series, Derrick Jones Jr. I'll probably go with his threes in a couple games because I'm trying to speculate what Boston's defensive strategy is going to be. And I have to assume it's going to be involving trapping Luka and trying not to let him go crazy from behind the arc. So if they're going to end up trying to neutralize the pick and roll game, then somebody's going to be open. And I feel like Derrick Jones Jr. has proven, at least from defensive coverages in the past, even though he's gotten better with the three-point shot as the series have gone on, he's still not known for being a good three-point shooter, just based on his career. So I can see Boston electing to focus on other guys over him and maybe willing to sacrifice a couple of open threes per game and just daring Derrick Jones Jr. to hit these shots. So if you want to go for a player prop angle throughout the series, I don't mind Derrick Jones Jr. threes, trying to guess how Boston is going to defend Luka and Kyrie. I think Jones might find himself wide open behind the arc more often than people think.
Yeah, I know Terrell mentioned the X factor that in PJ Washington. Do you think that for Dallas it is Derrick Jones Jr.? Who do you think it is for the Boston side?
For Boston, if I had to go for an X factor, I was trying to wonder if I was wondering if I should go for somebody that's like expected, like you go Drew Holiday or you go with Derek White. I'm gonna go Porzingis. As simple as that. I feel like there's a lot of question marks surrounding his health. Even with him coming back, I have to wonder how many minutes he's going to play. I have to wonder just how impactful he's going to be. And we know how much better Boston has been so far this season with Porzingis at center. No offense to Horford. I know he's done a pretty good job as the series have gone on. But Porzingis is a much better outside shooter. He gives you much more size just based on height. I know the rebounding is always an issue with Porzingis, but I think he's the biggest X factor for Boston because nobody knows how healthy he actually is, and nobody knows how impactful he's going to be, or if Russ is going to play a factor. But if I had to go for somebody who's been that impactful over the regular season, who can be a serious matchup problem for Dallas because they have to guard on the perimeter a bit more, then it has to be Porzingis as my X factor for Boston.
Yeah, I should mention that Porzingis has not played since April 29th, I think was the exact date. So well over a month for the Boston Celtics that do expect him to return. Like I mentioned, all indications are, at least for game one, to be available to play. Terrell, I know you mentioned X factor for the Dallas side. Who do you think it would be for Boston if they do go on to win this NBA championship?
I think it's Derek White and being a two-way defender. And, well, let's just insert whoever's guarding Kyrie Irving. Because Kyrie Irving, if he is able to go out there and match Luka in productivity, you have no shot. Like, if this gets into a point where we're looking at Kyrie and Luka and this little shades of LeBron and Kyrie versus the Warriors coming back from 3-1 down, then I truly think that there's no shot if you're allowing both of those guys to go out there and average 30 a night and what everybody else can add on top of that. So I think for the Boston side, it's going to be defensively, who is the person that's guarding Kyrie Irving? Can that person hold a one-on-one matchup with Kyrie Irving and allow us to be able to trap Luka and get the ball out of Luka's hands and force somebody else to beat us? So I think it's Derek White. It may be Drew Holiday. X factor, whoever's guarding Kyrie Irving, can you limit him to 20 points a night?
Yeah, and I think that again, for me, it's again that those depth pieces that Boston acquired in the offseason, right? Scott mentioned Kristaps Porzingis. Like, what are you going to get out of him after missing well over a month? And then Derek White, defensively, I think you nailed it. Is that we know that he can knock down the 3-point shot, he can get you assist, make the right plays. But I think defensively, what can Drew Holiday and Derek White do to really slow down Kyrie and Luka, who have been absolutely phenomenal throughout the NBA playoffs this year? So Yeah, really intrigued there by the X's and O's matchups here. Let's get over to some serious props here, guys, for this NBA Finals. I know, Scott, you mentioned that you do like the Dallas Mavericks plus the 1.5. Currently over on DraftKings, that number or the price is, let me see here. Dallas plus 1.5 minus 120. Total games in the series. I do not see that listed for whatever reason. Let me see if I can find that here. But Terrell, why don't you lead us off, man? Any series spreads you're looking at? Anything of that exact outcome? Series double? Anything like that? What are you looking at?
Yeah. Well, we look at a series spread, and the plus 1.5 just already feels very good for me, just because I think that Dallas is going to take home court and is going to be able to win a game on the road. So that just makes me feel better. But it's really, what does Dallas do when they get back to Dallas if they sweep home court at Dallas? If that's something that's able to happen and they're able to sweep home court in Dallas, then this just tells me that, hey, I already have the script. And so I'm playing around with Dallas in 6. Dallas wins it on their home court. And the shooting is just off for the Boston Celtics. I think that these are going to be relatively close games. Like, I think all of these games, you look at it, they're going to be more or less close games. Maybe it's one blowout on each side, but more or less going to be close games here. And if it's a close game and I'm choosing the duo that I like better, who do I like better to close the game? Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, or Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic? Then I think the same thing that's going to happen in that Minnesota series is kind of be the same thing that's going to happen in this series, where they just find a way to close these close games. And even though the series could have easily been tied up, easily look one way or another, it kind of just leans to Dallas because they have the better closer. Like, I think that on the brightest stage of them all, in the fourth quarter, Luka Doncic is going to absolutely go crazy and be able to pull Dallas to a win more than not. So yeah, I like them in 6. Give me Dallas to win 4-2.
By the way, one thing I want to point out is that the NBA Finals used to have the 2-3-2 format. They got rid of that. Just to be clear, they got rid of that. So now it's 2-2-1-1-1. So if you're wondering if they were going to go back to the old format, if there was anything unique about the NBA Finals format, there is not. They got rid of that. It's back to the normal alternating ones after the first 4 games.
They need that format this year for the Stanley Cup Finals between Edmonton and going down to Miami for the Florida Panthers. Should I mention this? I'm not sure if it matters or not, but these two teams did match up during the regular season. Boston did win both meetings and cover the spread. 119, 110, 138, 110. I know a lot of people don't like looking at the season series, but I just wanted to mention that in case people were wondering. Scott, any other serious props you're looking at? Plus 1.5. I know you mentioned for the Dallas Mavericks. Anything else that you do like? And I did find the total games is at over 5.5 at minus 150 right now.
Yeah, so I think if I was going to look for another prop based on how bad Boston's been on their home floor, you can find the road wins in the series. Over 2.5 is plus 135. I think that might be intriguing if we're expecting a 6 or a 7 game series. Terrell's mentioned it before, but there's been a streak that did not happen last series, but it should have. Where Boston's lost a home game in like X amount of series in a row. Indiana should have won game 1. Like, that was sitting right there for them. They didn't take it. But Boston tends to fumble about on their home floor all the time. And Dallas hasn't exactly been that great at closing out on their home floor either, because you might remember they ended up losing game 4 against Minnesota in the last series. So I think if you want to go for a prop and just expecting the lack of home court importance, which has been kind of a story over the playoffs for the last couple of years, we've seen road teams winning game 7s multiple times so far this postseason in particular. The over 2.5 road wins combined is plus 135. I find that kind of intriguing.
Yeah, I think that's, again, Boston, we know that they'll cough up at least one home game in the NBA Finals. And like you mentioned, right, you nailed it, that Dallas wasn't able to close it out on their home floor in the Western Conference Finals, had to go on the road there. And they've been really good on the road, and Boston has been really good on the road as well, right, in the postseason thus far. So I think that, and I know the cliche goes that the series doesn't start until a road team wins, but all these teams have really excelled on the road thus far in the playoffs, I should say. All right, guys, before we do get over to some more NBA Finals talk, let me tell everyone about the newest sponsor on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. That is going to be Rhythm. If you're betting on NBA player props, then you need to download Rhythm. Rhythm gives you a menu of the best player props for every single NBA playoff game, making it easy to go through and find the best props to put your money on in seconds. Rhythm's predictions are backed by over 3 years of data and a team of data scientists and quants that focus on fine-tuning our algorithm to give you the best shot at winning. Rhythm pairs its predictions with player prop graphs to help you feel even more confident in your picks, which you can make wherever you normally place your bets or DFS picks as well. From superstars to bench players, Rhythm finds the best player prop lines, all backed by AI data, without you needing to endlessly scroll through a sportsbook. Rhythm also allows you to create your own custom NBA model so you can get a AI-backed money line, spread, and total picks for every playoff game. Claim your 7-day free trial by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. Again, that's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That's RITHMM. Sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. All right, gentlemen, let's continue it here. Terrell, any other player props series props you're looking at for the NBA Finals?
So I have this thought of the Celtics only love to disappoint after they have a lead. And when we look at what happened in 2022, they went on the road and had that game against the Warriors. It was amazing. They went up 1-0, and then that's when it was like, the 97% is going to cash. It was always Boston. And then they proceeded to fold it away. And they proceeded to drop games at home and ultimately play themselves out of the series and giving the Warriors. I like something similar. So just in case they actually do decide to win game one, Boston to win game one and actually fold this series away is 5-1. I'm not certain if Dallas loses that game, if that's 5-1 price on the series. I don't know. I think it's probably maybe plus 450, maybe closer to 5. I don't know if it's any greater than 5-1. I think 5-1 is a pretty good price to that. So I like Dallas. Boston win game one, lose the series, and that's just me hating.
Yeah, I do see. Yeah, like you mentioned, 5-1. Boston to win game one, and Dallas to win the series. Currently sitting at 5-1. Dallas to win game one and Boston to win the series is the longer odds, right around plus 550. And the favorite is Boston win game one and the series at minus 130. Another intriguing market, guys, I want to get into here is the finals MVP. And a lot of times, we look at the series price for the NBA finals and say, hey, let's just go out and get better odds and just pick the MVP. So right now, as I try to scroll through and find the finals MVP here. So right now, Jason Tatum is the favorite at minus 115, followed by Luka at plus 205, Jaylen Brown at plus 650, Kyrie 22-1, Porzingis 35-1, Derek White 35-1, Jrue Holiday 50-1, PJ Washington 300-1, Al Horford 400-1, Derek Jones Jr. 500-1. Scott, let me start with you. Right now, if you're looking at finals MVP, and if you want to pivot that way, who are you looking at? Maybe a favorite, or then maybe if you have a dark horse that you may like.
Well, with the exception of Andre Iguodala, it tends to go to the best player on the best team, or the team that wins. So I think looking at the actual, I got to be honest, because Curry probably should have won it. They didn't give it to him. It wasn't a stray. I'm just being honest. I thought Iguodala winning it was ridiculous. But the point is, you tend to have to be the star player on the championship team in order to win it. So I don't really see the purpose of talking about a dark horse. The only dark horses in theory would be Kyrie or Jaylen Brown, but I don't see either of them winning it. Maybe Brown because he won the Eastern Conference Finals MVP, but I just think it's going to be Tatum or Luka. Luka, I think, is a guarantee as far as I'm concerned. No offense to Kyrie, but Luka's going to give you the rebounds, the assists, the stats are just going to be better than Kyrie's, unless Kyrie averages like 30-something points on like 55% shooting. Like Kyrie has to go full supernova offensively if he's going to win MVP. But Luka, even if he doesn't shoot that well, is still going to walk into what? Like 27, 9, and 9. Like his numbers are going to be too good to pass up on. So I think Luka's basically a lock to win it for Dallas if they end up winning the NBA Finals. The issue is Boston because Jaylen Brown won it for the Eastern Conference Finals by 1 vote, I believe. And I think I probably would have leaned to Tatum because some of it's just based on voter bias. And I'm sure a lot of the voters ended up voting for Tatum to be a first-team All-NBA guy, whether he deserved it or not. It feels like there's a narrative there for Tatum, though, who's been the best player on this team that's failed in the playoffs for about a decade straight. And now it's kind of the ultimate stamp that he's a legitimate top 10 player in the league. I know you can disagree about it on your own right, but I just think voter bias is going to be too strong in favor of Tatum. They're just going to say he's the best player. He's a top 10 guy. There's a reason why we were constantly pretending he was an MVP candidate for about a month and a half. This is that moment where they just give it to him and say, you're officially a superstar. And they're going to let people whisper amongst themselves if that's true or not. So I'm not going to go with any real dark horses. I'm just going to go with Tatum and with Luka. If I had to pick one guy, it'd be Jaylen Brown. But I'm not going to actually pick him. I think it's either Tatum or Luka.
All right, Terrell, MVP?
Yeah, so I've seen across the atmosphere of gambling, Twitter, gambling community, and people have tried to go throw out these dark horses. Honestly, truly, I think you're really you're being unrealistic if you think it's going to anybody outside of the top 4 guys. Yeah. Like the level of things that has to happen for Kyrie Irving to win is astronomical. So to add anybody else to that conversation is honestly wasting our time, and you're just blowing 0.1, 0.2 units on a ticket that looks pretty, but you know it's not going to win.
Derek White has a shot. No, he doesn't. What are you talking
No,
about?
he doesn't. Yeah, I saw that. No, he doesn't. He does not have a shot. And no matter how much you say it, he does not have a shot. Kyrie Irving, literally Luka has to get hurt and they still have to win the series. That is the only way Kyrie wins this. Luka has to get hurt and they still have to win the series. That is a lot to ask for, because if Luka gets hurt, they probably lose. So it's like, okay, that has to happen. Now, if you even think of trying to make the case for anybody else, you have to start it with the fact that Luka got hurt. And so now you have to add Luka and Kyrie got hurt and they still won. No, it's not going to happen for Dallas. It's not going to happen for the Celtics. There's no chance that Derek White, anybody else out here, is getting this award. So if you're going for Boston, you're probably just laying the -120 with Tatum. I think that's actually kind of crazy for Tatum to be -120, but -115, whatever. The laying any type of price on Finals MVP, I think is kind of wild. But I think Jaylen Brown has more of a chance to win it over Tatum than Kyrie does Luka, but I think it's ultimately stuck at the top 2. Like I just can't see voter bias. If there was some other way of determining Finals MVP, then maybe I would be interested in it. But the units that I'm laying on Jaylen Brown and Kyrie Irving are just a formality. But honestly, truly, it's really Tatum and Doncic. This is what this whole finals is about. This is what they've been waiting for, these two teams. And they've been waiting for one of these two guys to crown themselves as an NBA champion so they can have that push in the league. They're not missing that opportunity to push those players. So I hate it, but it seems like it's stuck at the top for me.
If you're going with Kyrie, by the way, and you think Luka's the only chance, Luka getting injured is the only chance, you might as well live bet the MVP at that point. Because if Luka gets injured, the odds are going to skyrocket for Boston. You could probably get a better number on Kyrie, just to be fair. So that might be the way you'd want to play that. But for a pre-series bet, I just think it's chalk. Maybe Jaylen Brown if he ends up having like 30 per game, but I think it's just chalk.
Yeah,
that's the only other person I really think it's just those 3. Yeah. As much as in a Kyrie 2-1 ticket is fun, and I'm probably gonna have it. Like I'm probably gonna be that guy that puts a 0.1 on a Kyrie 2-1 just to say I did. But
wait, what is Kyrie?
22-1.
Luka was 2-1. So what is Kyrie?
Oh no, 20. Yeah, 20-1. 21.
20-1. Okay, cool.
Yeah,
21, 22-1. Like wherever. Yeah, it's just it's too much. Like there's a clear bias. There's a clear bias, and I just can't see. I can see Tatum actually not having a good series and Brown carrying them, but I can't see Luka just not being able to do anything.
Yeah, and it's what Scott mentioned, right? That even if Luka has a bad shooting series where he only average, say, 24, 25 points per game, but we still know that he's going to get the rebounds. We still going to get the assists and possibly put up those triple doubles as well. That just gives the advantage to Luka over a guy like Kyrie. I think
that's going to be the excuse. Hey, Luka was able to rebound. Luka was able to assist. Like that's going to be the excuse.
Yeah, I think like Kyrie would have to average 30 plus points per game for him to get MVP, or have at least 30 points in every single game for him to get the votes.
If Kyrie's averaging 30 and Luka has, like Scott said, Luka has 27, 9 and 9, and Kyrie's averaging 30, do you still get? No, I don't even think they still give.
Also, voter bias. Do voters like Kyrie now? Do people dislike Kyrie? Like, what's the general consensus on Kyrie right now? Because he was kind of
he ain't got one vote. he's definitely doesn't. Whoever the Boston Globe vote is, he's not getting that one. So
Yeah.
if they lose, he's not getting. That's one vote. That's 100%. You know for a fact that vote's going to Luka.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so there we go. A little also finals MVP talk there. I think that's pretty much it, guys. Anything else that before we do get to series lock in dog here? Anything else we want to mention for the NBA finals? I know you guys will do game one on Wednesday for the NBA finals, but from a series perspective, anything else you guys want to mention? Scott, anything else?
Yeah, I see one player prop I actually like.
Yeah, go
Unfortunately, I
ahead.
could not find the average threes per game for Derek White Jr., but I found one that I find interesting. It's actually the leading three-point maker in the series. Luka's at even money, but I want to just read off the actual average numbers that they have on a separate page on DraftKings because
Mhm.
Luka's average threes per game is over under 3.8. That's the average. Nobody else is above 2.7. So he is a full three-pointer above everybody else in the field, and he's even money to lead the series in three-pointers. Can you explain that to me? His average is one higher than everybody else in the series and is even money to lead in threes. The odds don't make any sense there. I think those odds are off. So I like Luka to lead the series in threes.
To make threes, right?
Yeah, to make threes at even money
Even money.
because if you're pricing the over-unders with averages, you have Derek White at 2.7. We know Tatum's had some three-point issues. He's at 2.6. Those are the second and third highest guys for threes. Kyrie's fourth at 2.5. You're looking at Luka 3.8. So he's a full three-pointer above everybody else minimum in the field. And him to lead the series and made threes is even money. So I don't understand why those odds actually are set the way they are. That doesn't make any sense. I'll take Luka to lead the series in threes at even money.
Yeah, I couldn't talk you off of that. Again, those threes per made, like those averages, is
It's about
sometimes they're
volume
really
anyway. You know, Luka's
yeah,
going to chuck it.
yeah, 100%. Any other ones that you do like in that market?
For threes, no. That was one thing I just noticed based on the averages. If I was
Yeah.
going for rebounds, I feel like that's more of a game of chance. Well, so are threes, to be fair, but Tatum's at 9.9. He's actually leading everybody at 9.9. Luka's second at 8.9. So Tatum does have a rebound advantage over everyone else. And yet, with that being the case, you're looking at Tatum being minus 150 to lead the series in rebounding, which I find kind of interesting. But the market's kind of two ways. It's either Tatum at minus 150, Luka at plus 180. Porzingis is third at 10-1. That's an insane number. I think Lively or Gafford should be third because we know Porzingis barely rebounds when he's healthy anyway. I don't really have much. I feel like it's going to be an interesting series trying to find out who Dallas prefers at the center spot because they're going to alternate minutes there. So I don't really see much value on rebounding or assists. I think Luka's going to win assists. So the only thing I got is threes for Luka at even money.
All right. Terrell, anything you're looking at in that market for series long player props?
I actually like Luka for the rebounds leader. I think that he's just gonna, Luka just has an eye for being close to the rim and being able to grab those loose balls. And you think about the bigs on the other side, especially if Porzingis plays in that series. So Porzingis and Al Horford away from the basket, 3-point line, pulls them away. But the thing is, and I think that's what the issue for Boston's going to be, even in pulling Luka and not Luka, but pulling Gafford and pulling Lively away from the basket anytime you can. You still have a lot of really good rebounders now. Like they have a lot of length and they're able to challenge. And so I think Luka is going to be that person, and Luka's going to continue to. I think he could actually, average about double-digit rebounds for the series. He may not average the triple-double, but I think he can average double-digit rebounds for the series. So yeah, I think Luka at plus 180 actually is pretty much some nice value. I would take Luka plus 180, and then if I split up a little bit, I would split up a little bit on Lively or Gafford, but I think it's Luka.
Yeah, Luka in his career in 11 games against the Celtics is averaging 8.8 rebounds, and in the two matchups this season, he had 18 rebounds and 12 rebounds, so averaging 15 rebounds there against the Boston Celtics. And again, we know the minutes are going to be there for these star players like the Kyries, Lukas, the Tatums, the Jaylen Browns of the world. So, yeah, definitely I could get behind that for Luka for sure. And Luka also did have a triple-double in both games during the regular season against the Boston Celtics. All right, gentlemen, let's wrap up this episode for the preview of the NBA Finals with a series lock and dog. Could be anything, series winner, series double, anything that you guys want to give out. Terrell, you want to lead us off with your lock and dog for the series?
For my lock, there's no point in playing around with. Give me Dallas plus 1.5, minus 120. I think that they're going to be in this series. You're telling me that it's going to get to 7. I think it's over before that, and Dallas hangs a banner in the Raptors. But ultimately, Dallas has been really, really good defensively over the course of these playoffs, like really, really good. And that was my only note. Like, I can go back into way back when they made the trade. I was like, man, if Dallas plays defense, they're scary. And I just didn't think they were going to play defense. And they've shut me up all the way up into this point, playing really, really good defense. And I think that's going to be something that really, really rattles the Boston Celtics. And plus Luka, Kyrie in crunch time. I think those are the best 2 players on the floor in crunch time. And so I think they're going to be able to get it done, and they're going to win a couple of close games and just pull away with it. So I will take the plus 1.5, minus 120 as my lock. For my dog, I'll make it that Luka rebounds leader at plus 180. I just think that's a really nice spot for him with the battle between the bigs, and probably Missoula saying, hey, let's try to keep the bigs off the glass. They probably put a little bit more effort into the bigs in this series, honestly, seeing how they, let Miles Turner go crazy on them. They let Evan Mobley go crazy on them. They let Bam go crazy on them. They probably put a little bit more effort here, and that opens things up for Luka. I think Luka can average double-digit rebounds for the series. And if you average double-digit rebounds, I think you're the leader. So, yeah, give me Luka Doncic to lead the series in rebounds at plus 180.
Love it. Scott.
All right, so for my lock, I think I am going to go back to the threes made market. They're just too big of an odd disparity that doesn't make any sense to me. Give me Luka to lead the series in threes at even money. Makes no sense that he's priced averaging over 1 3-pointer more than everybody else in the field, minimum, and he's even money to lead the series in threes. The math doesn't check out. I mentioned the rebounds before. Tatum is priced 1 rebound more than everyone else, and he's minus 150 to lead the series in rebounding. So even money makes no sense. I know that it's a high variance market. If Luka goes, I'd say, a little bit awry from 3, then I'm screwed. But I do think the volume alone is going to carry him. Tatum, we've talked about many times being an inefficient 3-point shooter. And I do think that Derek White being priced at 2.7, I don't know how many attempts they think White's going to get in the series. Is he getting like 9 attempts per game? I don't see that happening. Luka might average like 10 attempts per game. So based on volume, give me Luka most threes in the series at even money as my lock. For my dog, I think I'm actually going to expect chaos in this series. So I am going to go with the over 2.5 road wins combined at plus 135. I just think it's a good series where both teams have been a bit spotty at home. Boston more so. Yeah, I know Terrell wants 140 or higher. Yeah, I know. But I do think you're looking at 135. For a series future, I think that it has some value to it because Dallas has been great on the road. They've gone into OKC and won games. They've gone into Minnesota and they've won games. They went into the Clippers arena. Yes, I know the Clippers arena might not be. Yeah, they killed Minnesota in Minnesota. So with that being the case, I do think you're looking at Dallas winning at least 1 or 2 road games. I think Boston, we know, is really underwhelming at home. Very good on the road, though, in the playoffs for years. So I do think that you're looking at a lot of road wins, and we are picking a longer series, probably going 6 or 7. So a lot of opportunities. Give me the over 2.5 combined road wins at plus 135.
All right. From my lock, I'm going to go to the assist market. Drew Holiday is at 4.6 assists per game in the NBA Finals. I think that number is way too low.
You're saving it for the last segment? We didn't mention anything about Drew Holiday the entire time.
And that's why I saved it for the lock here, and that's why I'm going to give it out here right now.
You're making sure we didn't steal it, so I see how it is.
No. Again, we know that he's going to be out there for 40-plus minutes or at least averaging close to 40 minutes per game. But, I mean, when this guy's on the floor, he has that championship pedigree, right? When he was with the Milwaukee Bucks, he was a huge factor in that series for the Milwaukee Bucks. Just over the course of the playoffs, he is averaging right at 4.6. So I think that's where they're just kind of stealing the number. But against the Dallas Mavericks during the regular season, averaged 6.5 assists over the last 5 games. He's averaging 5.4 assists. So for a guy like Drew Holiday, who also, I believe, can fill up the stat sheet, maybe not as much as Luka does, but I know he's going to get the rebounds. I know he's going to get the assist as well. I do think that he can average over 4.6 assists per per game in the NBA Finals. So I'll go with that as my lock. For my dog, this was an area that I was really struggling to find a good or nice price here. I do like the Celtics to win the finals, but their series spread at -1.5 is only even money. That's not something that I want to give out.
What's their price to win game 1 and the series? If you wanted to take that approach.
-130.
Okay. I mean, it's not. I mean, that doesn't count as a dog for you. But
Yeah,
you can give it a
and
bonus
that's-
lock if you want it.
Yeah. So I'll give that out as a bonus lock. And then I think I'll just go series outcome. I think this it's probably rats up in 6 games. I think I'm gonna go Boston in 6 plus 475 as my dog for the NBA finals. So yeah, I'll give that out. Boston Celtics plus 475. And a lot of guys asking about series long player props. Chris and I will be doing a prop cast for the NBA finals tomorrow around, I think we said noon Easterns for the prop cast. Look out for us then for the series long player props for the NBA finals. All right, guys, before we get out of here, let's do official predictions before we wrap up the show. Scott, who's winning it in how many games? And give me your MVP.
All right, I'm going to go Boston in 7, and I'll go with Tatum.
Terrell.
Dallas in 6, Luka Doncic.
I will go with Boston in 6, and I'll go Jason Tatum to win MVP. All right, guys, looking forward to it. We're down to the final 2 teams. Kicks off on Thursday night in Boston. I know Terrell and Scott will do game 1 on Wednesday. Me and Chris will be here on Tuesday to do series long NBA final player props, and then also we'll do game 1 player props on Wednesday as well. So look out for us then. We also do have an NBA Finals prop contest we're going to be doing on the network. Just ironing out the details. We'll get that out on socials. It'll be free to enter. All you got to do is make sure you're subscribed here to the NBA Gambling Podcast YouTube channel. Winner will get $100 in cash and also a $100 SGPN gift card. So look out for that and get into the contest for the NBA Finals. So hopefully we will get that launched by today, just ironing out the final details like I mentioned. Terrell, anything else you want to mention before we get out of here?
Yeah, listen to the WNBA Gambling Podcast. Again, I'm really been chilling, and I have been sparing everybody.
Say the lock record.
I've been sparing everybody, but my lock record is 11-1. 11-1. I've been trying to spare you and not how and just keep it going and relax. But 11-1 is 11-1.
I mean, who told you to lose a game? You could have had a perfect 12-0, but no, I'm just kidding. Yeah, again, guys, make sure you guys get over to the WNBA Gambling Podcast, man. These guys are absolutely crushing it. It's right here on the NBA Podcast on this YouTube channel. So if you're already subscribed, when the other guys do go live, make sure you guys tap in. Also listen to the audio version wherever you do get your pods, whether it's Apple, Spotify, where the case might be. Scott, anything else you want to mention before we get out of here?
Yeah, somebody in the comment section said that they found over 2.5 road wins at plus 155. So Terrell can get off my back. I reached the qualifying of plus 140. So we're going to take that, the updated price now, plus 155 for the over 2.5 road wins.
There you go. And again, if you guys are in the comment section, leave your predictions for the NBA Finals in the comment section. Put your exact outcome and also your MVP. I want to see what you guys are on as well. And we'll talk about that as the season or as the series progresses for the NBA Finals. Make sure you guys follow Terrell on Instagram and on Twitter. That's at @reallyRel__. Follow Scott as well on Twitter at Reichel Radio. You can follow me there as well at SportsNerd824. Again, make sure to get into that contest when we do make it go live. All you got to do is make sure you subscribe to the NBA Gambling Podcast YouTube channel, and we'll be good to go. All right, we'll be back throughout the week for NBA Finals coverage, so look out for us then. Till then, good luck with your bets. Let's break these books off and let it ride.